Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Monday night broadcast. I'm Dynasty, one half of La Maison du Rouge. My other half, Lucy Sweetkill, is having a nice night, relaxing and not doing this. And I'm always so happy to see all of our regulars pop up and to be here to introduce another wonderful person to your sphere. And tonight we have Domina Mara, born in the heart of California. She hails from international waters with Chinese, Filipino, and Spanish blood. Her career began in 2013 as a professional BDSM player at a local dungeon in Los Angeles, and created a solid foundation for her knowledge of bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, and Sado-Masochism. Now she travels the world bringing all levels of submissives and fetishists to their knees. As a dominant, her greatest joy is watching you transform into the most humble and genuine submissive with purpose. And we have that in common at least. Please welcome Domina Mara. Domina Mara, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. It is so wonderful to see you. You look lovely.
Thank you, you as well.
Thank you. So, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a little warm in sunny Los Angeles, but we do what we got to do inside.
Yeah, hopefully you've got the AC or the fans. It is
Yes.
a warm day in New York City as well.
Final glimmers of summer.
Yeah, yeah. And it's been a very unusually kind of like wet and hot summer too, I think. For some people, I don't know. So like all the mosquitoes are out, all the things, that grow are growing. And
it's good for the skin.
It is. It's great for the skin. And it feels like this year has also like bloomed into a slightly different kind of being than all our other years. I don't know.
100%. I feel the same.
So I want to just tell all our audience members, and everybody says hello, that we would absolutely love to answer all your questions. If you can wait until the very end to ask them, or at least if you are asking them now, that you will be patient until the very end and not keep repeating the same question over and over again in the comments box. So just to be polite and respectful, that is the way we always do things. And we're going to talk to Domina Mara about her life in BDSM and kink, and that is a perfect time to just listen. So can you, like, from the very beginning, describe one of your first kinky experiences, whether it was sexual or non-sexual?
Yes. Actually, it was when I was 2 years old. So really early on. And I remember this so vividly because of two reasons. First, let me just paint the picture for you. It was during preschool. I went to preschool when I was 2 to learn English and Chinese. And we had nap time because it was kind of like, even though I was only 2 years old, like it was kind of a all day thing. And I couldn't sleep. And so the girl next to me, we had cots and sleeping bags. She whispered to me, she was like, "Hey, put your hand down your pantyhose," because we wore underwear and pantyhose as part of our uniform.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and so already private school girl. And she was like, "If you rub yourself down there, it should feel good." And I had no idea what she was talking about. I could, my vocabulary was limited, and, I just remember like trying to figure it out. I did it, and I was like, I still didn't get what I was supposed to be feeling. And her name was Angela. So I was like, oh, look, it was like my little, naughty angel from the beginning telling me how to pleasure myself.
Yeah.
So that was the point one. Point two is when the headmistress caught us. So she heard us whispering and thought, because it was all out in the open, and she walked over with a flashlight and a wooden metric ruler.
Ooh.
And I was a top student. Like, I was never,
Ha.
disciplined or whatever. But she took my sleeping bag off. My pantyhose was already down. My underwear was down. So I was like butt naked.
Whoa.
And she was like, "Oh, good. You're already bare bottomed. Flip over." And she gave me a few smacks on my butt, because that's how she would discipline, the bad kids
Yeah.
during preschool. And I was like, in my head, I was like, "Oh, good. I didn't get in trouble." You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
after that, I went to sleep, and I never actually saw Angela again, which kind of like,
Whoa.
she either kept us, I think she kept us separate on either sides of, the room. Cause I think how they put us was alphabetically by our last names. And so she moved Angela. She didn't move me. She moved Angela. And Angela, poor girl, got more beatings than I did. And I think hers were harder, because I think the headmistress knew that I was a good student, and like Angela was trying to influence me, but she wasn't doing anything wrong. She was just telling me. And I asked Angela right after she told me, like, "How do you know how to do this?" And she was like, her 9-year-old brother showed her.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I learned about sexuality without knowing what it was when I was that young.
Whoa, yeah. That's what if it turned out that Angela was actually like a masochist, and she was, she was just like, "Oh, I'm gonna get some smacks if I keep doing this," and
Could
that would be
very well
hilarious.
be. I mean, maybe she liked that, but she was more in tune with her body than I was, because she already knew what to do, how to do things. Because I was even asking, I was like, "What am I supposed to feel down there? Like, I don't get how this feels good." Like, I
Yeah.
told her that, and I remember vividly, and she was just like play around. And I was like, "With what?"
Yeah.
I
What
was
am
so
I
clueless.
supposed to feel? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Wow. So and that's so great that her name was Angela too, like your
I
little
know, right? It was
pleasure
so
angel.
perfect. Yes, 100%.
I love it. So how has that unraveled in your life, like going forward from there?
So actually, it became 180 when
Ooh,
I got into school, and I actually went to school in New York for 4 years. Um, that's where I actually learned about foot fetish for the first time. Um,
wow.
yeah, because my roommates and I went to a Halloween store, and how, I don't know if it's still there, but there's one Halloween store that takes up like 2 full blocks in Manhattan. And
Mhm.
it's only around during Halloween season, because in New York, like pre-pandemic, Halloween
Yeah.
is huge. Like,
Yeah.
they have a parade and everything. Like, I've
Oh
been
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when my roommates and I went, we were looking at all the costumes, on the wall and everything. It was like ceiling to floor. And this guy literally comes out from behind like the curtain holding the costumes. And he doesn't say a word. He hands us all out a card, and then just like disappears. And I'm like looking at this card, and it was a party for foot fetish.
Oh.
And yeah, and I was like, "What the fuck does this mean?" Like, I looked at my classmates, and I was like, do you guys get it?" And one girl knew, because one girl in her class, she was in fashion. Um, she would go on weekends to, like, guess walk around in heels, and guys would pay her to watch and, possibly like worship them. And I was like, "People pay for this?" I was like, "This is amazing." But because I don't think I was even, I think I just turned 18 at the time. So I was like barely legal. Um, but nobody else wanted to go with me to like check it out. So I was like, "Well, I'm not going to go get murdered by
Yeah.
myself." So I didn't think anything of it. And it's so funny, because like another girl joined our suite the next year, and I don't know if she saw something in me and was like, I don't know, because we didn't talk a lot. She was the new girl in the group, and she was the only one in the group that gave me anything for my birthday. I didn't even know
Hmm.
she knew what my birthday was. And it was a pair of leather cuffs.
Oh,
And I was like, I'm never gonna use these. Like, what are these for?
yeah.
She was just like, happy birthday. And then 2 years later, I ended up using them on my, partner at the time. So, she saw
Only two
some
years.
yeah, she saw something in me that I wasn't aware of. Again, I feel like I've been having all of these female,
Mhm,
like, kinksters or, like, just angels and
mhm,
devils, like, coming in, and I don't say devils in, like, a derogatory way, I'm just saying, like, these kinds of spirits in people that kind of come to me and that have, like, been dropping me these clues my entire
mhm,
life,
mhm.
and I was just super closed off of it because I was, like, not sexually active really at that time.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that was, like, how it progressed, I suppose.
Yeah, like other people are kind of like dropping hints for you
Yeah.
because they're picking up on some kind of energy that you're.
Mhm.
So I'm curious if your cultural background had anything to do, or your ethnic background, or your family and the people that were like closest to you
Mhm.
had anything to do with maybe not recognizing these things about yourself.
Hmm. Honestly, I think it's the opposite. I think the people in my family, because I come from a super matriarchal family, like they're the ones in charge. They're the ones that handle the finances. They're the ones that handle social, graces with other families kind of thing. I think it's in all of their bloods. It's just that they've never, like, coined the term dominant. They've never it was very, like we just said matriarchal family,
Right.
and it was kind of like a clan.
Mhm.
Um, but as for terminology, I just feel like and it's not to say that all the men that they married or whoever got together with were submissive at any point. It's just that they really just took charge of of life and
Yeah.
living, and then how the children were raised and
Yeah.
everything. So
Yeah.
I feel like my family in particular has known this
Mhm.
and when my parents know. So when my mother found out, she wasn't surprised at
Yeah.
all, really. Like she was like, "Okay."
Yeah. That's the best case scenario,
Yeah, and
honestly.
I'm very blessed that that happened that way, but also I feel like it's because she's like that too,
Mhm.
because they came from a very, like I mean, it's very culturally Asian, but
Mhm.
then in addition to that, because I'm part Filipino, they're also very religious.
Yeah.
And so the Catholicism part came into play and
Mhm.
a lot of, disciplining and like, yeah, disciplining is pretty much the word, right? Because,
Mhm.
my aunts, one of them didn't get good grades. She would have to kneel on like rice or beans in
Oh,
front
yeah.
of the Virgin Mary with her arms stretched out, holding the books that she failed in the class of. Like, that's my family.
Oh, wow, and to think we're using that as a way to make money.
You know, hey, that's called real life experiences that we can reference back on.
Yeah. And also, yeah, totally, and total, like, perversion of these real life experiences.
100%.
I love that. And I totally relate to, the matriarchal family. My all my like Chinese aunts were the heads of their own households and the
Mm,
ones that handled all the things and managed all the things and then delegated it to their husbands and children.
yeah. Honestly, though, I feel like I've also worked in the film and entertainment business, and I feel like most of the producers, not all, but a lot of them were female, and
Hmm.
it's like them taking charge of like budget, schedule, all this stuff. Like guys were very good at technical, like
Hmm.
cis males were very good at technical stuff, not all, but most.
Yeah.
And then the females would handle all of the other
Yeah,
stuff, like
the
the planning,
multitasking stuff.
exactly, and
Yeah.
planning and all this stuff that yeah, it's very
Yeah.
tedious. Yeah.
Yeah. So, at what point did you come into the realization that, like, oh, I guess I'm maybe a little different, and I could capitalize off of this?
Actually, it didn't come to mind that way.
Mhm.
because like I mentioned just now, I got into film and entertainment, and that was like my dream job. Like I got my dream
Mhm.
job. However, it was not the dream job. um, I had a blast learning a lot. I have my name in a lot of credits, but the bosses that I had
Mm.
were again all women,
Uh-huh.
and one of them in particular was extremely like verbally and emotionally abusive.
Mm.
Yeah, but she would do it in a way that was very like you agreed with her when she said horrible things because she was a master manipulator.
Right. Yeah.
So when I was in the room with her, like I would watch how she would do none of the work. She would pass it on to coordinators and me, and we would be like, she's just sitting in our office. Like, she's supposed to be managerial, right?
Mhm.
But the thing that I learned the most from her is how she commanded a room because everybody always listened to her. Everybody stopped and always respected her. And I was just like, how is she doing this? So instead of, feeling victimized by it, I was just like, I need to learn something about this right now
Yeah.
because this is valuable.
Yeah, it
um,
sounds like she had some serious power.
yeah. And so kink actually popped into my mind at that time because I was like, I feel like I could learn something from this through, power exchange. Cause I knew a little bit about it, but I was like, I didn't, experience anything for myself.
Mhm.
So I applied to a house here in Los Angeles, and that's where I actually began because I found them instead of looking up like clubs and stuff because I was like, oh, I could just go visit and see how people like do the thing, and then I could be social with them and whatever. But then I ended up finding this dungeon house instead, and that's where I began really.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay, so through observing your lady boss
Hmm.
be a lady boss, you thought
Hmm.
that kink was kind of like an avenue where you could explore like what that was about.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, that's really fascinating. Never would have made that connection.
Me neither. But it happened, so that's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, can you talk about your experiences at the house that stood out to you most, and maybe some of the things you learned about yourself?
100%. So I'm not going to hide it. I actually started as a bottom because I had no previous, experience, no, personal or professional, right? So they are old school, and the way they train their girls is that you have to start from the bottom if you don't know anything. I was like, that's cool. Like I'll learn all the tools that way. I'll know how it feels so that, going forward, should I finally become, the dom that I want to be, I'll know what certain, expressions of pain are, etc. Right. Um, it only took me like 3 to 6 months to become a switch because I was a natural.
Mhm.
Um, and I would go in every week on the weekends because I still had a full time job. But that time period when I was there, I was there for 3 years, which is a significant amount of time in this kind of industry, like
Mhm.
sticking with it consistently for that long. Um, but I learned a lot, and I also learned just what makes people tick. Like I never took any psychology class, but like that's the most that I learned, just going in and experiencing play with different people all the
Mhm.
time. Um, and yeah, from there, that's when I decided to go independent. And I actually was also transitioning out of my 9 to 5 job then too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you found that to be something that you could do full time, and that you had the interest to do full time.
Yes. But it also just kind of happened that the 9 to 5 job wasn't serving the same way either because I was just not growing in either of those stages. It was a very painful time for me, but it was also like the best thing that could have ever happened as well.
Yeah,
And yeah, that's kind of like how I treat almost all of my experiences in life is like it all happens kind of for a reason. And I just let it happen because there's always a better thing coming.
totally. They're all
Yeah.
stepping stones to
Mhm. 100%,
to
yeah.
something else more authentic and
Mhm,
suitable for you.
mhm.
So So you said you were at the dungeon for 3 years.
Hmm.
And then after the 3 years, how did you come out of it?
The transition, as I mentioned, was pretty like brutal because I had no idea how to market myself. I don't think there were as many classes as there are now
Mhm.
on how to become a dom, or the the archetypes. I had no idea that there was even a class on that, and I didn't know DomCon existed at the time.
Mhm.
I just heard of it. However, I did have the foot fetish thing because I became a foot fetish model as I was in the house. So I kind of just like went to the parties that, had the foot guys in it. And then that kind of bridged over to becoming independent. I built my own website because I knew how to do that. I also do my own photography and film. So everything that I needed to do to market myself, I kind of was like, okay, I can do this 100%. Um, but getting the word out there, oh, that was another thing. Craigslist and Backpage was shut down by that time. So
Wow.
I didn't get in when people were still benefiting from those sites. So advertising for me was like really, really hard. And it's still hard now, even with social media, because we are being shut down left and right still. And like my Instagram has been taken down twice,
Mhm.
and it really it pained me a lot too, because I'm the actual artist behind my images. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it was just so heart-wrenching, but
Yeah, because
I
it's
yeah,
you make such a huge personal investment in everything that you put out there, and
correct,
it's
yeah.
not seen as art, it's seen as like whatever whatever they think
Well, and the
whatever
thing
they
is,
think is not good.
I was trying to make it super like PG, I don't do like fully explicit stuff, and I try to take my photography and like scenes outside of the dungeon
Mhm.
because I want to show people like you can do kink anywhere.
Mhm.
Like anywhere that inspires you. I know that you are also an avid lover of nature, so
Mhm.
nature is a huge like thing in my life, and I just want to like kind of encourage that, you know aspect in people's lives more, and just
Yeah.
like open their eyes to that kind of possible experience that they
Mhm.
can do. So that was kind of the angle that I was going in. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's important to recognize also that kink and BDSM are a part of sexuality that isn't necessarily like this weird, like tiny little sliver of sexuality, that actually more people have probably kinky tendencies than sticking with just like what vanilla is, which is just like basically one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of what I love about this world. It's so beautiful that you can just kind of like pick and choose what you want to, dive into. And then if it doesn't work for you, or like if it worked for you for a certain phase in your life, that's awesome. And then there's no right or wrong to like
Right.
shift over into something else, you
Yeah,
know?
you can try things
Yeah.
and then you don't have to be married to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it so much.
Yeah. Yes. So how has your career like evolved from when you first left the dungeon to where you are now?
Right. Oh man, it's expanded a lot. So I started my own YouTube channel actually when I was you know, becoming independent, because I was receiving the same questions over and over again through email, and I was like, man, there's got to be a way for me to record myself and just put it out there so that I can just send it to these people so that they can watch it, get a feel for who I am, and it doesn't seem like I'm rushing and typing out like a pre-recorded message. And this way, yes, it's pre-recorded, but at least you're hearing me as honest and as articulate as I can be as a person and as a dominatrix. So I started the channel in January of 2017. And then from there, it's expanded to so many playlists of different things that I've kind of like experimented with, from ASMR to product reviews. A lot of like toy companies started kind of noticing that the content that I was putting out, and they wanted like a shout out kind of thing. And then I tangentially also have created my collection, which was pretty awesome. Because I was never like, it takes a lot for people to want to dedicate themselves to chastity. It's a commitment. It really is. And people think that, oh, I just put on a cage for like an hour and then I'm in chastity, right? I'm like, no, man. If you want the real full experience, it's as long as you can hold it, basically. And I will test that, you know? So
and it's not up to you.
It's up to the bosses.
It's up to the person holding the key.
Exactly.
So
and
it is also a relationship binder.
Yes, 100%. And I think I did a video on this recently about the titles that I use, because I hate labels, but because they are important in the kink community, I've selected the ones that I use with very, very good intention. So one of them is key holder. And in that video, I talk about why I choose key holder over owner, over master, and stuff like that, because those are very appealing labels.
Yeah, they are.
But for me, I resonated with this one because of that bond, and because it's like, you know, it's kind of like a Redding wing, but for the below the belt.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I would love to actually connect or put the link into the comments for that video. And you say it's on YouTube, right?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to, you know, come away from our broadcast, but I'll probably do that. And I just want to remind our very attentive and respectful audience that all questions will be answered at the end of the interview segment. So please just hold your horses and don't repeat the same question over and over again. So we're talking about kind of the evolution of your career. And so as far as like on a more personal note, what have you discovered about yourself through the evolution of your career?
That I can do a lot of things that tie into kink. I think if it's okay with you, I want to bridge the previous question with this one, because like another playlist that I have on my YouTube channel is like my travel tours. And I don't feel like I would have ever gone internationally the way that I have, and probably in the, you know, time frame that I have gone, if it wasn't for my art that had like my femdom art with it, because I actually got accepted to 3 different galleries to showcase my work. And I was very surprised because I sent it in and I was just like, you know, they probably won't pick this because it might be too edgy or too whatever. But I think because I did it in a PG light and I did it in a way that was like very endearing. The 2 that I'm talking about, or 3, I'm sorry, that I'm talking about are, the first one was Spring Nymphs. And you guys can go check this out on dominamara.com in the portraits page. I have everything archived, but Spring Nymphs was for LGBTQ plus, which was really great. And that showed here in Hollywood. The second one was, Puppy and Poppy, which was me like playing catch with somebody in like puppy gear out in the poppy fields here in when it bloomed, that had the super bloom. And then the third one was actually in Sweden. And that one was self-portraits, meaning I took it myself on a tripod with a remote. And that one was mommy time, where I like tied a bunch of stuffed animals up in like Kimbaku and Chivari. And those 3 things, I think, really proved to me over time, because that all happened in 2019.
Oh, wow.
Like over the course of like 6 months. And that proved to me that I was like, man, like if I tie this in a way that is, like you mentioned before, true to who I am as a person and what I'm passionate about, like I could literally do anything. And so this year I've also launched my own jewelry design,
Mhm.
and lines that, have a subtle kinky twist to it, but it's not like out there in your face. But I also try to make it high quality, affordable, classy kind of thing. But like, I don't think I would have thought of that if I wasn't where I was today, kind of thing. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And I
Yes.
do all of this on the side, outside of playing, so when
Yeah.
I'm not, yeah, and that's the thing I want to tell everybody. Like, when you're Dom, or when, someone like me who's a mistress is not in session, we are working our butts off to like be entrepreneurs everywhere else. We not only do like, the typical like clips and, on the phones and stuff like that. We're trying to push ourselves to, be artists and like tie in all of our other interests with what we do. So,
Yes. Very
yeah.
true. So I'm gonna actually put that website of your jewelry and accessories line here in the chat for
Thank you.
everybody to see, because I don't think it's up on the descriptions. We have to be very careful with what kind of things we link to, or else
Mm,
YouTube will yank us down again. Um, and then your YouTube channel, I'm just gonna link that as well, so people can find all the videos that you'll be mentioning
mhm.
in your YouTube channel. And I actually just pulled up your YouTube channel and saw the variety of different types of videos that you've got up, and I'm just like, wow, there is
Yeah.
so much here. And you really are like an artist of such, diverse interest. You've
Yeah.
got some ASMR videos, you've got some unboxing videos, you've
I've
got
got
like
memes.
you
Those
got
of you who like
memes.
to laugh, I have wholesome kinky memes that you should check out. They're hilarious.
I
And
love
I have
it.
a great time chatting with my followers on the live chat
Yeah.
with it, cuz sometimes we premiere it together live. And so
Yes.
we'll be laughing at certain things together. It's great.
You've got like visual art, you've got rope, you've got like your studio makeover DIY home stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a lot, and I think it's really time for us to be our multidimensional selves, and not just the two-dimensional like leather clad, like,
Yes.
whip wielding vixen that everybody
Mhm.
thinks a dominatrix is, or that's what the word evokes.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yay, that's really awesome to hear, your full spectrum interests being expressed and celebrated.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's see. I've got my list of questions that I'm gonna make sure that I cover. Um, I'm curious at the moment what some of your favorite kink interests are too.
Oh man. I don't like this question because it makes me really have to pick things. However, there are
It's
ones that
just
I
for
do
right now.
prefer. Oh, no, no, for sure. And there are ones that I do favor over others. And one of those is I just like corporal. As a generalistic sense, I love the punishment aspect. I love interrogation aspects of it, and I love tying it in with CBT. I love ball busting and just
Mhm,
torturing that area.
mhm.
And then the method that I like to use to integrate all of that is also rope, because rope can literally be tied to anything. You could tie limbs to your own limbs, you could tie them to furniture, you could tie them to trees,
Yeah.
like you can tie them to anything.
Yes.
So those are kind of like my top 3. I would say foot worship and like receiving body worship is a very like strong point in my career, just because, um, to this day, I still have a lot of my foot fans that have followed me from, the parties and stuff like that. And then
Mhm.
till now, um, kind of it's a strong army of
Yes,
people.
yes, and it's almost mainstream, you know?
Yeah,
So
it's like
people
the entryway, I
yeah,
feel. One of the
yeah,
entryways, yeah, to kink.
yeah, definitely,
Mhm.
and people are less, I guess, like, closeted about that specific part of their kink interests, even if there are other ones or not.
Yeah.
Um, and so even like subtle, subtle movie scenes, like from Quentin Tarantino's films and things like that, where it's not like, oh, feet are gross, don't ever show them. It's just like feet are actually like, they're a lot like hands. There's a lot of nerve endings, or
Yes.
your feet can be very dexterous and indicative of like what kind of intellect you have. I don't know.
He's definitely a foot guy, and I actually one of my meme videos is about him and foot fetish because he will take shots. If you've seen Inglorious Bastards, I'm not gonna spoil it, but there is a shot of a woman's feet and in a cast, a
Oh
foot in a
yeah.
cast,
Yeah.
and, like, he just makes it beautiful, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he will take an injured part of a limb that you're just like, "Who cares?" Usually,
Mhm.
right? Normal people would be like, "Okay, she's hurt on her leg," but he made it he made her have a heel, a
Oh
platform
yeah.
heel,
On that
so
cast.
yeah, so that she could wear heels with her
Yeah.
other foot, and she would still be the same height and not wobbling around, but they made it beautiful, like,
Yeah.
it's a piece of art.
That a lot of thought went into that for sure.
Yeah, oh, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
And then the Kill Bill where Uma Thurman's like, she gets herself out of the hospital, and
Mhm.
then
Move the
um
big toe.
move the big toe. Yeah, that was like a really long kind of suspenseful scene where it was focused on mind over matter, and
Yes,
getting
but
getting that toe to move.
that is, like that in its entire, like, complexity of, like, psychology and then the suspense that was happening with the story, that's, like, kink right there.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so do you like, leading, from the things that we just talked about, do you think that kink and BDSM, and like alternative sexualities are becoming more acceptable in the mainstream?
Yes, because even if you take kink out of it, I've been seeing in the younger generations, like, people just being more open to, like, kind of poly or open relationships
Mhm.
or open marriages,
Mhm.
and I think I might be jumping a little bit ahead of myself, but that's something that I've found has changed over the course of my experience with this personally is like I was super because I was born and raised Catholic and, confirmed Catholic, all the stuff. I went through all the steps. I'm non-practicing right now and I'm more spiritual, but because I was raised with such a monogamous type
Mhm.
of, conditioning, it's just so amazing to see a lot of people trying to be ethical about, like, opening their relationships up and trying to play more and trying to be more inclusive with other people, kind of breaking gender barriers, like, who cares what you are as long as we kind of, have chemistry, and that to me speaks so loud and clear with, like, kink because for me, it's the same way. I don't care like what age you are, what you look like, as long as, you can afford it.
Yeah.
But also, like, you are bringing something that's, all authentic to the
Mhm.
table,
Yeah.
and that we have chemistry with that.
Yeah, I think that that's really important, is that people are focused more on maybe their truer desires rather than fitting into the mold or trying to appear normal.
Yeah, and just having, like, more variety in their life because I feel like a lot of people separate because either they become bored or they're not able to, live their truths because they're
Mhm.
scared of, like, their significant other or spouse, finding out and stuff like that. So, like, with the younger generation, it gives me hope
Yes.
that I see, people, like, trying to at least be educated before they become, like, ethically, open or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I see that too, and I definitely see more media trying to represent like
Mhm.
alternatives, sexualities and kink in a more truthful and even like pragmatic way,
Mhm.
where it's just like kind of the nuts and bolts of, say, sex work, um, instead of something like Pretty Woman,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
is not, it's not unheard of that a story like Pretty Woman happens, but it's certainly not the status quo of, of most escorts.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah. So I want to ask you a question because you mentioned being more spiritual than religious.
Mhm.
And this is, maybe not something that everybody can answer. But you specifically, I feel like, when I first met you at DomCon, we had
Mhm.
connected over some vaguely spiritual ideas.
Yes.
And so I want to ask you, like, has your spirituality become more integrated into your practice, or if that's something that you consider doing?
So I actually remember our conversation in our first meeting very vividly because I was like, oh my God, I was able to nerd out on how spirituality, no, I'm serious, ties in with kink. And I was like, oh, she gets it. She does rituals. She does all this stuff. So I was like, inside, I was like dying because I was like, oh, I found a person who's like me, who does
Yes.
all this stuff. But yeah, to answer your question, I think it actually has deepened a lot because, and I don't want to sound cliche, but I'm going to say it anyway, but I'm going to explain myself. So, BDSM is kind of like my religion because I wish nothing but the best outcome for both me and whoever I'm playing with at the time. And the biggest way I feel like people can connect with each other is through intimate ways. And if that is through, being tied up in a ton of materials, or, being at my feet or going through hypnosis. Hypnosis was a huge, like, I guess, way for me to jump from in spiritual levels in kink because I was able to physically and spiritually and emotionally take somebody from this default world into their highest thoughts and dreams. And most times, when they came out of it, they just were like so dazed. Like I would have to like keep them in the room for a little bit to make sure that they could like drive home safely and stuff
Yes.
like that, because to
Yes.
bring them literally back to earth.
Yeah.
And, some people might not believe in hypnosis and some people might be skeptical. And trust me, I was skeptical in the beginning too.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
the more I practiced it and the more I started believing in it, I think it became more powerful. And I feel like that's kind of like the key to anything you do in life. It's like the more that you put your trust, your belief into something, the more
Mhm.
it's going to give back to you. It's literally what you put in and it'll come out.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, the power of belief is extremely strong. Yeah. So you approach your practice, your BDSM practice with spirituality.
Yes,
That's
100%.
awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, wow. Okay. So do you do, like, what does that look like? Do you do rituals? Do you have like a like your own rituals or rituals with other people and intentions and things like that?
So when I do, like I mentioned, hypnosis or energy work, because that's slightly different. Energy work, for those of you who don't know, and to me, because people might have their own personal views on it. For me, I use it as I feel like, okay, I'm a light worker, so I will take people's traumas and anything that they're kind of like have mental ailments of, and just kind of like release it back into the universe. That's
Mhm.
kind of like what I feel like I do.
Mhm.
And it's not necessarily like it's kind of like shamantic, but I wouldn't call myself a shaman per se because I've actually experienced that as well with a real Peruvian shaman. And that's on another level. Like that is
Yeah.
something that is like out of body experience
Mhm.
and a totally different story. But for what I can personally do, and because I'm super self-aware and I'm aware of like what the other person's desires or like whatever they're trying to fight in life and trying to release is, I can articulate that. I can find it in them and I can grab it and just be like, okay, you're like healed. You can go back out into the universe and, you know, um, I have to remind those the people also like when they start like crying hysterically like because they feel a weight lifted or
Mm.
um I do a lot of things with like feathers and like water as well
Mhm.
and singing bowls.
Mhm.
So it's like a mixture of like kink and how do you call it, like sound healing therapy,
Yeah.
and candle light and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I use elements a lot,
Yeah.
and visual imagery. So I just like combine what I've done for myself, and guide other people through that experience.
Hmm.
And it just becomes like this thing that I because I believe in it, they believe in it too, and it just releases them from that trauma or whatever that was. And I say trauma as loosely, it
Yeah.
can't, it doesn't have to necessarily be something like abusive or whatever. It can be, but I'm saying it in a generalistic sense where it's like there's other things like maybe you self-sabotage a lot and that's like grown into this monster
Yeah.
over time, for many
Yeah.
years, and I got to release that off of that person too. So I
Yeah.
do that, and I work with oils too,
Hmm.
and incense.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like engaging all the senses,
Mhm.
and and it sounds like you do kind of like a form of soul retrieval where you kind of patch up that part that maybe got left behind in a
Yeah.
very specific situation that was possibly traumatic or just really dramatic,
Mhm.
for the person. I
And
think
I
that's
also sorry, really quickly, and I
Mhm.
also remind them after all of that's done, like, to forgive themselves.
Yeah.
Because I think so often, like, when people have so much stuff going on in them, like, they forget, like, they have to people think of, like, "Oh, I gotta forgive that person. I gotta forgive that person because, I was wrong," and, like, all that stuff. I'm like, you always have to forgive yourself too. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like my reminder, and like the way I close out all of that stuff is like I tell them like I forgive you. You need to forgive you as well. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like after that I feel like they can kind of like walk out into the world again and be like, okay, everything's okay again.
Yeah. Yeah, cuz a lot of times people forget that
Yeah.
forgiveness is also something that they need to turn on themselves
Themselves.
to
Yeah.
release all the baggage, cuz then like
Mhm.
you may have forgiven other people, but maybe you're still holding on to your part of that situation and carrying that around.
Yeah, and then if they feel like they need to do all this other work, like back in the default world, like say they want to, be there more for their family or whatever, or like I don't know, whatever it is, then they can do that as an extra bonus and like be conscientious of it. But
Mhm.
they can't do that and feel good about it if they haven't forgiven themselves yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. Um so I'm curious if there is anything else that you are working on. Like there's so much that you're working on, and if there's any, like you had mentioned your jewelry and accessories line.
Mhm.
Is there something like is that finished or is that something that's
No.
ongoing? Are all of
Yes.
these ongoing projects?
I feel like you know me well by now that
Okay.
yeah, I feel like everything is always I the way that I am as a person is like I don't feel like anything is ever finished, and that's not to say like a project isn't done. There's so much niddling that I can do on a certain piece of art that I'm just like, okay, I'm going to put that one away and call that finished. But in
Yeah.
the grand scheme of things, I want to see how far I can push each of these things that I'm interested in.
Hmm.
And I know that because I'm super inspired to do all of these things, and I pace myself. It's not like I just like dive in and then nobody sees me for 3 months. No, like I
Yeah.
manage everything as a whole, and it's as its own ecosystem.
Hmm.
And I make sure that each of those things are nourished. And if I need a break from one side, I'm okay taking a break and just moving on with something else because I know that, my soul needs that right now. And I
Hmm.
listen to that. I'm very intuitive and listen to that. So everything is going to be expanding. I'm starting this jewelry thing, and all of the finances that come out from this first wave will actually go back into testing new items.
Hmm.
So right now it's just like necklaces, chains for like your eyeglasses and masks, and like keychains and hand sanitizer holders, which
Yes.
is what we need right now.
Yes.
But after that, I want to like go more into one of them's a shoe, like a stiletto
Oh, cute.
with a red heel on it, and but I want to push that, like, if there's more stuff that I can give to like foot fetishists or foot people, even if it's female doms,
Mhm.
like who are into it, then I want to kind of see where that can go.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I can see like a pleaser type heel,
Oh yes.
for maybe the strippers because it's a
Mhm.
very iconic shape,
Yeah.
and it's mostly like strippers would wear the pleasers rather than like a red, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
high
for
heel.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Like
awesome. I love that.
it'll get there eventually. It's gonna be a slow process, but I would rather have like a slow and steady.
Yeah, definitely. Sustainable.
Yes.
And it sounds really smart that you're kind of like you're not it's not like spinning a bunch of plates. It's just like having, several it's almost like having several rugs on the loom and
Oh,
they can just
yeah.
sit, like they're not going to like fall if you leave them for a while or they're not going to like,
Yeah.
burn on the stove if you leave them. They'll just sit and get better with age.
There's something magical about looms as well because it's such an old art,
Mhm.
and you literally have to use it's manual. Well,
Mhm.
the traditional ones are manual, where
Yeah.
you literally have to do line by line by line.
Right.
And I feel like that's kind of like with my life right now too. It's like I'm literally weaving what I want into this grand tapestry of what is going to become, my
Mhm.
life. So
Yeah.
hopefully you guys will be on this journey with me until the end, whenever that is.
I love that analogy so much. The
Yeah.
grand
Yeah.
tapestry of life. I use
Yeah.
that a lot too. It's such a
Mhm.
beautiful kind of like thing to behold in your vision, like because you don't know what it's going to look like until pretty much you're done.
Or there's like so many other pieces in it. Like there's this one, where was I? In Pennsylvania, in the Philadelphia Museum of Art. There's these huge tapestries, literally, like they already have high ceilings. It's
Mhm.
literally from the top of the ceiling to like the floor. And some of them are covered because just for the elements, because it's
Mhm.
out in the open. But one of them I remember specifically was about like it's kind of like a royal garden party kind of thing, and it
Mhm.
spanned the entire wall. It was a very long horizontal piece,
Mm.
and I was just like, I don't know if the person had to sketch it because there's just too many elements for it to like, be anything else. But there was like leopards and like exotic animals like peacocks in the front with like um also exotic plants like ferns and palm trees in the background, and then the people were just so animated, and I was just like do you think these leopards would have been there in the original sketch, or did they put it there afterwards thinking like, this looks awesome if there were big cats here, kind of thing? And I feel like life is like that, where it's like
Mhm.
you can only plan so much, and then
Mhm.
afterwards like spontaneous stuff comes into your life, like
Mhm.
these little angels that I had to circle back,
Mhm.
in my life,
Yeah.
who dropped hints of kink, like maybe that, helps
Mhm.
influence another aspect in life too.
Of
So
course, it's like it's the glimmer, that
yeah.
you can weave. You can still weave them in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
spontaneously, yeah.
spontaneously. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's like I like the more kind of serendipitous approach to life. Like letting things be open and having some intentions, but not necessarily like goals. Because you don't
Mhm,
always know when something's going to end and something else is going to begin, and
right.
letting chance kind of dictate that for you so you don't get too attached to like an end result and then feel like a failure if you don't get that end result.
Mhm. And that's
Yeah.
kind of how I'm treating, I think, as I get older, like domination as well. Like there's no end point for me. Like I'm literally just gonna do this as long as I physically can.
Mhm.
And even if I can't do it physically, maybe even mentally. But I just feel that, you know, why put a deadline on anything,
Right.
right? Because
Yeah.
like you can put milestones, right? Like you can
Yes.
say like, oh, I want to do this, to have the self discipline, like I want to get this done by this time, blah 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 blah. Fine, but in the grander scheme, it's like just let it happen as
Yeah.
it should. Yeah.
Yeah. Let it run its course, and when it's done, it'll let you know.
Hmm. In one way or another.
Yes. So do you feel like taking some questions, answering
Yes.
some questions from
Mhm.
our very patient, lovely audience members?
Yes.
Wonderful.
That was
Let's
like
see.
a huge tease for all of you. You had to sit through all of that before we
Yeah, but
address
you
these.
may have gotten some questions answered in the
Mm.
patience department. So please feel free to decline anything that you don't want to answer, as sometimes I prefer um, less like reductive questions. Michael Brzezinski would like to ask, first time experiencing kink in her lifetime, was it sacking a guy in the nuts?
I wish, man. Oh, wait, hang on. No, it wasn't actually. But that was a close second and taboo because I actually the first person that I ever did that to may have been a family member.
Well, he must have deserved it then.
Actually, no. We were in the swimming pool
Oh,
and I was you were just talking about like I think he had a kind of maybe kinky side, I'm not sure, but we were talking about like balls and how sensitive they were and
very sensitive.
I was like 11 or something. So I was like preteen. I didn't even have my period yet. But I was like, "Can I try just like kicking you in the balls and seeing how that feels?" And before he could like he was like mulling it in his mind. Before he could respond, I just did it. And I was like, "That was fun." And it hurt, but I think he kind of liked it. So I was like, "Hmm."
Did you say you were in the pool?
Yeah, I was in a swimming pool.
So it wasn't like the full force.
No, it wasn't, but I jumped off of the floor and then like used both feet to do it. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
hope that kind of gave a little bit of force
Well,
because
yeah.
he definitely keeled over, and I was like, "All right, I did it."
Well, there
But
you
I
go, Michael.
that was me being interested, but, like, precursor to that, I think in, elementary school, the boys were being such little shits. Like, they would, like, verbally say stuff, and they just wouldn't stop, like, in class, outside at recess,
Mhm.
and then I just started, like, pinching them and, like, kicking them in the shin, like, under the table because I was like, "Shut up, man." Like,
Yeah,
no one's here for that right now. Like,
yeah,
I'm not offended, but I also just want you to shut up. And
seriously.
so they stopped after I did that because, one boy, like, I made him bleed, and he was like, "Do you know how this feels? It really hurts." And I was like, "Does it?" And I was like, "Why don't you try it on me?" And he did it, and he also broke my skin. He's like, "That doesn't hurt." And I was like, "No, I can take it." And he was just like, and I think after he realized that, he was just like, he didn't talk to me after that.
Yeah,
He just was
like,
like,
she's a beast.
"Mm, yeah, I'm not gonna mess with her anymore because she's actually physically doing things right now."
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I definitely bit a little boy when I was very young, out of frustration.
May I
Um,
ask where?
I bit him right on the forearm here,
Mm.
and his mom, came to my mom and was just like, "Look what your daughter did to my son," and he just frustrated me because we were playing like Matchbox cars, and he was just going too slow. I don't
I
even
love
know.
that. That's
Yeah.
so great. It's like oh, man.
Okay. Next
Oh,
question we've
wait,
got.
one more thing.
Yes.
I also had this it wasn't me ordering it, but this one boy, I'm not sure if he had a crush on me or not, I couldn't tell, but he would, like, try to, like, do weird stuff to, like, impress me, and I don't know if it's because he knew I was, like, kicking other boys because they were being little shits, but,
Mhm.
like, he would go down on his knees and kiss bird poop on the school grounds for me. Like, he offered that to me, and
Whoa.
I was like, "Huh, good
Huh.
job, man." I was
Yeah.
like, "Nobody else is doing that, so,
Wow.
you have my attention."
Damn.
But
He started
yeah.
living his best submissive life like early on.
Before I even knew, man.
I hope he's still doing it.
Me too. I hope like he's happy wherever he is, and if we ever cross paths, like I want to like relive that for him in
Yeah.
real life.
Yeah. Like, let's go to a birdie area.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, next question we've got from Jonathan Villalobos. Hello, Mistress Mara. What is the longest and most brutal blotting session you have ever done?
Blotting. Define blotting.
Yeah, Jonathan Villalobos, we need you to define blotting. And in the meantime, we will go to the next question. Um, Ayush, the positivity, asks, what you think about the pegging is it most demanded fantasy or no?
It is pretty up there actually. Almost as much I think as feet, and if
Mhm.
not both. um I love it. I think there should be more mainstream of this. It in a, stylistic way, in a way that like kind of interprets it rather than, have to show it because, obvious reasons, like the ratings for, theatrical releases or for television.
Mhm.
But I think, like, it's starting to become a little bit more mainstream because in Deadpool, I don't know if you guys
Mm,
have watched it. Yeah, the
yes.
International Women's Day thing. I was like, hell,
Yes.
this made me even respect Deadpool even more. Because
Right?
at first I was like, he's just being like the cool dude who
Yeah.
like goes and like, creates havoc wherever he goes. But like when I saw that tender moments of like him and like him actually falling in love with somebody and somebody who's matching him or whatever, I was just like, yeah, man, I love that. And
Yeah.
there's just something about, like, I totally get it now, like the daddy dom, like why it's so sought out. Like the whole teasing before the penetration part to me is like the most fun ever,
Mhm.
because like it's all about anticipation and it's all about like the tease and it's all about the psychology of like getting them to that point because they're just like, oh, I know I'm going to be penetrated, but when
Mhm.
is it going to happen? Or like, oh, I know I'm going to be penetrated, but how? Because I
Yeah.
don't just like stick it in there. Like I ease them into it,
Yeah.
maybe with a finger, maybe not, maybe with a
Yeah.
foot. I don't
Yeah.
know,
And
you
maybe
know?
you make them beg a little and you
Oh,
you get them to
yeah.
work for it,
They
'cause
gotta be on all fours at one
yeah.
point, they gotta crawl around for me in a circle, like, it sometimes gets ridiculous,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, have fun with it.
Yes. Yes. Have fun with it. And we want to see more of it. So
Yes.
you should engage with it as much as you possibly can.
Oh, and that's also, one of the ways that you can make men, at least, cis men, orgasm because they don't like I've done that to multiple men and they don't even have to use their hands. They don't even
Oh, yeah.
touch their cock and it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
ta-da.
Yeah, I know. And
So,
sometimes it's like multiple orgasms too. So it's
yeah,
like one of the
like the
only
shivering
ways.
and the
Yeah. Mhm.
convulsions. I'm just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is great." Because
Yeah.
then I don't let them go like that. I take my pinwheel and I keep going with the sensations.
Yeah, I mean, it's not
So,
like your mind, their headspace doesn't necessarily shift after that kind of an orgasmic release, and
mm.
so you can keep doing other things.
And depending on what you do, it prolongs it even, and sometimes
Mhm.
I even had guys tell me, "Okay, mistress, I can't take anymore," because there's so much stimulation
Yeah,
depending on
yeah,
how sensitive they are, and I'm just
yeah,
like, no, just a little bit more. You can take a little bit
yeah, yeah,
more."
yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah, and then afterwards,
Okay,
they just laugh, yeah.
it's such a different, kind of sensation to have that kind of an orgasmic release, and
Yeah,
you can't get to it unless there's something in the butt. So
mhm,
just it's not a gay thing.
yeah, that's literally where your G spot is.
Yeah. Okay. So Sophia Fernandez would like to know, when you suspend a slave, what torture you do.
Oh man, the possibilities are endless. Usually I'm a very tactile person.
Mhm.
So before I grab any like tools or implements that to use, I actually like to use my hands,
Mm.
because that kind of gives, first of all, a sensation that if they've never played with me before, or if they have, a reminder of like what my touch is like.
Mhm.
Second of all, it's skin to skin, so there's like a sort of warmth there and a little bit of more connectivity.
Yep.
And then third of all, I've got really nice long nails. And I really know how to push and pull that a lot. And I mean, you can do that with a tool, but like with fingers, like you could spread them out as much as you can. You can really control
Yeah.
how, you dig deep into that. So I like to use my hands a lot. And sometimes it's not even nails, it's just like fingertips. And you just
Mhm.
lightly do that. And it drives them crazy if they're like super sensitive or
Mhm.
ticklish in some places.
Yeah.
Tickling is another thing that I really like to do. And I just want to give a shout out to Drew, who donated in the chat, because he's like my first tickle person. And
Oh.
I still see him to this day, so that's kind of like one of the iconic things that I do when I suspend somebody or
Yeah.
have them,
Okay.
hanging.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's yeah. I noticed Drew. And I'll just put this up real quick. Drew says, "Thank you for the work that you both do. Both
You
you
incredible
incredible
woman.
woman do has definitely
Yeah.
helped people like me heal from past traumas," which is,
Yeah.
I think, a huge topic within the BDSM realm of healing from past traumas. It's really important to recognize that um, BDSM is not therapy, but it can be used concurrently with talk therapy. And we're not trained therapists, but a lot of what we do holds space for what you learn through therapy to be able to manage of yourself.
And
And
can be therapeutic.
yes,
But
absolutely therapeutic.
yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, Drew.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So let's have another question. And then we may have time for one more question after this. This is a
Mhm,
good question here from B. Dan Fran.
mhm.
Um, Question for either of you. Do you differentiate DS subs from masochists slash bottoms? Can you session as well with either both groups?
Um, so for me, I actually distinguish even further. I
Mhm.
distinguish subs from fetishists, from masochists, from bottoms,
Mhm.
and then like almost anything in between, because they are so different. And the nuances that I put into play kind of cater to all of those things. It's not that I'm doing what they want me to do. I'm taking their interests into consideration and then guiding it the way that I would like.
Mhm.
But some people who are submissive just want to serve and they have no interest in pain.
Right.
We will negotiate, however, if they want to please me. And since they know that I have a sadistic streak, like they'll say, I can take, XYZ for you. And they will allow me to do that to them should I want to go that direction. Bottoms to me are people who like to literally be on the bottom, but they don't necessarily serve me, they don't hold me to a high goddess regard necessarily. They can, but they basically, it's almost like a practice bunny for ropes, like I just like, tie them up, and there's a little bit of play here and there, but that's kind of it. There's no real power exchange being had there. They're just like there. So that's
Mhm.
that's how it is for me. Um,
Mhm.
oh, and fetishes, I'm gonna say that I'm gonna continue to say this until the day I die.
Mhm.
Fetishes are not necessarily also submissives,
Correct.
because a lot of fetishes think that they are, because they are into a certain thing and because they are in a subservient role, maybe, but that does not define them as an actual submissive. So I don't treat
Right.
them as that.
And you could be a fetishist for submission. You could
Yeah.
be,
Hmm.
you could be like your fetish could be submission, but that doesn't mean you're actually submissive
Hmm.
either. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of like Venn diagram stuff going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I pretty much agree with everything that you just said about the difference between DS subs from masochists or bottoms as well. Just adding one thing is that not all masochists are submissive as well.
Mhm.
Sometimes they only
Yes.
want a certain type of pain and they only want it a
Mhm.
certain way. And it doesn't mean that you can just go and hurt them any way you want. So sometimes you have to be a surface top to a masochist. And can you session as well with either both groups? Yes, just as long as they know what they are
Mhm.
and don't try to pretend to be something that they're not.
And if they don't know, because I will catch these flags like prior to session based off of their email and message to me or like how they're speaking to me. And I'll just be like, I just want to make something clear before we play. Like,
Hmm.
and this is my view. And then most of the time they take it really well. There have been a couple times where I've had, people get a little bit butthurt about the terminology. And I'm just like, this is labels, and I try to assure them like this is how I play, and usually they're kind of more drawn to that anyway, that aspect, and so they're just like, okay. And then when we play, then it's all good, then everything's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. You just are being clear with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. We've got a question here. You're from SH. Your YouTube dances are lovely, especially your barefoot dance. Do you prefer dancing barefoot or with shoes?
I think it depends on where I am and for what I'm doing it with. So, like, I'm not going to dance barefoot in the forest because it hurts. Like, I will use very thin shoes or very specific boots because that either goes with the outfit and the whole essence. When I dress for dance, I like personify myself in a theme. So,
Hmm.
like, for my Goddess Mara channel, I have another YouTube channel dedicated to my dance and flow, and that's kind of like the outlet that I have outside of BDSM that I also pursue.
Mm.
But the Oracle short film that I put out personifies an owl. And that's kind of like an animal that I really admire just because of its gracefulness, the wit, the um, awesomeness of its predatory, capabilities, and like, it's nocturnal, it takes flight very silently and can still see, like, miles away, like, all the things, and then spiritually, it's also, an animal that goes between worlds. So it's like a transient type of thing, and that kind of really appealed to me and what I spoke of earlier, which is, like, what I do for some people who need energy work and light work done to them. So that one was barefoot because I was in a concrete space. If I'm on stage where it's very flat and there's not a lot of wires, I will probably do barefoot as well, or at least like ballet jazz shoes. But
Hmm.
yeah.
Awesome. Let's do one more question and
Mhm.
then we will call it an evening. Max Media would like to know, what's your most favorite personal artwork you have done?
Oh man.
It's like saying, what's your favorite child? Who's your favorite child?
Or what's your favorite song in the whole world? It's
Yeah.
like, in what genre? In what time period? In what?
Yeah.
Oh man, there's so many. Okay. Um I'm gonna put this into all the work that I do for femdom because I feel like that's the most relevant here.
Mhm.
And also it is kind of my most proud pieces of art. I would have to say for right now it will be Cocoon, my short film,
Mm.
because that one was literally done in the process of like a traditional how do you say, like, beginning to end film industry type of process. Like, I went to a cafe, I was gonna get in a space location for one of my trips, and then that space just kind of defined the whole story for me just by looking at the photos of the living room.
Mhm.
And I made a mood board out of that. I did storyboards. I selected my ideal model and cinematographers for it, just shooting out in the dark, like, and I got them. I actually contacted them, and they knew each other and they told each other about the project and they were excited for it, and it was an all female like crew and cast minus one guy who was a lighting guy. And I think that one was kind of like the moment where I was like, wow, I can actually like film whatever I want, and make it evocative, and make it there a little bit of romance, and still kink related, but not super sexual or too, like keeping it super on every single edge of the line that I can, and
Yeah.
the music I chose the music too, which was free, and yeah, I kind of hope to make more of those in the future when COVID lifts. Hopefully I can, like, I've already written like 3 other stories down that I want to film, and yeah, really excited to kind of just keep making stuff, creating.
Yeah. Well, I hope that our lovely audience members can see that that your YouTube page is linked here. And
Mhm.
I'm just gonna pull that up real quick for everybody. So make sure you subscribe to Domina Mara's YouTube site so that you can be updated as soon as she posts some new work. And then also we've got her accessories and jewelry line here at keepitkinky.us. And thank you so much for answering all these questions. I'm sorry we don't have much time for the rest, but if you wanted to reach out to Domina Mara and offer her a tribute to answer your question, that would probably be welcome. She has several websites here or several ways of connecting. Her website is www.dominamara.org, and then fan club is iwantmara.com. So yeah, so always be respectful of other people's time that you're asking for things, especially if they make it very clear that there is a way to connect to them for a tribute. And Domina Mara, it's been so very lovely to have you and speaking with you and just learning more about you and all the multifaceted, multidimensional things that you do and that you are. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. And I want to say, if any of my subscribers are also listening right now, I'll also put a link to this afterwards, to my own channel. Please subscribe to La Maison du Rouge. And thank you to, Miss Dia and Lucy for doing all the work that they do, because this isn't easy to, coordinate and schedule, all these people from around the world and, interview them like this. And they've been doing this consistently for many years. So thank you so much for being a huge force of nature in, femdom history, for everybody all over. And no, I'm serious. And I hope I get to see both of you again soon.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging our work. It's something that we have built over time and what really poured ourselves into. And if any of you guys out there who aren't already would like to support this work that we do, you can subscribe to our Patreon, and there's many different tiers of subscription so that you can put just a little in or you can do more, and you get access to us every month for a certain amount of time during video chat. So you get to talk to us even more, and you can ask us all the questions you want. So yeah, thank you again for being such a lovely audience members, such great participants, such wonderful, community people. Thank you, Domina Mara, again, for
My pleasure.
also, being the kind of Dom you are, just like giving us all permission to be all the different things that we truly are, rather than just the two-dimensional expected thing that everybody wants to see. And hopefully we will see you guys in a couple weeks when it's Mistress Lucy's turn. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their week, and we will see you again soon.